So thank you all for joining us for today's Spotlight On webinar. My name is Dr. Andrea Gibbons and I'm the lead for QI Evidence here in Somerset, and I'm also the National Lead for Evidence for QI. I don't know how many of you have heard of Evidence for Quality Improvement, but it's E4QI and it began life as a Q Exchange award-winning project. And we have since received very kindly funding from the Q community supporting Q Connections programme, and I'd heartily encourage you, any of you with ideas, projects, collaborations, to really think about how Q might be able to support you and apply for funding if that's something that would help you make something that might not otherwise happen. The mission for E4QI is to help QI practitioners, so quality improvers like yourself across healthcare, become intelligent improvers, armed with the knowledge, evidence and best practice that they need to make better decisions, deliver better outcomes and do it more efficiently. Today, we are delighted to welcome you to the first of our Spotlight On sessions. Spotlight sessions are one important part of the programme of events that we have planned over the coming year. We'll also be running monthly 1-hour QI bite-sized training sessions on specific QI tools, in conversation with sessions with authors of QI research papers, as well as randomised copy trials, tweet chats and peer support groups. Each Spotlight session, such as this one, will feature a different team or organisation from across health and social care, showcasing and sharing the story of how their organisation is delivering quality improvements. We hope you find the session a fantastic opportunity to learn from and be inspired by your colleagues and peers. So in this first session, we're delighted to welcome the QI Hub at Blackpool Teaching Hospitals, NHS FT, to our virtual stage. The session will be led by Catherine Goldthorpe, who is Associate Director of QI at Blackpool's Teaching Hospitals. She is an experienced QI leader with a wealth of experience, whose previous roles include Head of QI at North West Ambulance Service, NHSFT. And I was going to say that all wrong. I was thinking there's so many words for QI, aren't there? And so many job titles. I was thinking if I got the wrong one. But she's had a wealth of job titles. And she also spent 7 years as Quality, Safety and Transformation Head at Great Ormond Street Hospital. And she's got loads of other experience. I'm sure she'd be delighted to talk to you about offline. She also has an MA in Leading Quality Improvement in Healthcare and a postgrad diploma in Health and Social Services Management. So again, I think it's so important to value the expertise and experience that our contributors and those involved in the call have. You're all bringing fantastic experience. So over the course of the next few minutes, Catherine and her colleague Michelle will share with you their Blackpool Improvement Journey, from building capabilities and culture to collaboratives and beyond. We will also have time for questions at the end of the presentation. So I'm now delighted to hand over to Catherine to tell us her story.
Thank you, Andrea. So first of all, welcome everybody, and thanks for having us. I was just saying to Andrea before everyone joined that it's rare I get to talk for this long. People usually only give you 10 minutes and then you have to race through everything and you don't really get a sense of what we are as an organisation and what we're doing. So we're really delighted to be here, myself and Michelle. So Michelle is our QI project manager and I'm the Associate Director of QI, and Michelle's going to help with the Q&A and she's going to manage the chat box as well. So if anything particular comes up, and I think you can see Michelle there and she's got the same background as me and she's giving you a wave. So we're delighted to be here today. We are, if anybody doesn't know where Blackpool is, there it is on the map. We're the ones who get the worst weather, and we are an organisation that doesn't just sit with Blackpool. We have the whole of the Fylde Coast, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a moment. But first of all, I just wanted to give you a bit of history, because none of the work that we've done at Blackpool comes from nowhere. It comes from people and learning from other organisations and people that are people who I think are the best in improvement. So you'll see at the top there on the left hand side there's a lady called Jane Collins. So Jane Collins was the Chief Executive of Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital, where I worked as a general manager for many years before I even knew what quality improvement was. And she was really a kind of a pioneer for me and an innovator in improvement. She decided, working with Dr. Peter Latchman, who some of you may know, he's an IHI fellow and was the chief executive of ISQA. They decided that they wanted to become a quality improvement organisation, and when they started that journey, they wanted to learn from the best and to work with the best. And I didn't really even know what was happening at the moment, but we got Don Berwick at that time. But we got Don Berwick to come and speak in our organisation, and me being a quite naive manager at the time didn't realise the importance of that. But he was so amazing and inspiring. And we actually developed a partnership with Cincinnati Children's Hospital, who were the leading organisation at that time in the States in QI. And just being surrounded by those people and influenced by those people, Peter, Dom, Jane and Una from Cincinnati Children's Hospital, just sort of was really inspiring, but meant that we were learning from the best. So nothing that I've ever done in my improvement journey has been anything that hasn't been tried before, has got an evidence base, and has really been sort of tried and tested in healthcare before we've started to use it at Blackpool. You can also see there Maxine Power. So Peter Latchman introduced me to Maxine at an IHI conference, and I was so inspired by her. I asked her to be my mentor, and she then eventually became my boss, and I worked for Maxine for many years. And again, an incredibly inspiring person who's taught me so much. And also, I couldn't help but put on the end there East London, because they're an organisation, and Dr. Shah is somebody who I've learned from and looked up to. And we always are outward facing. We're always looking for what is going on in the world globally. We don't just look in our own organisation and what's happening. We reach out to others in everything that we do. So for whatever improvement programme we're doing, we think, who's doing this best and who are the best people? And these are people who've inspired that journey and people who I've been able to work with and test the things that we've done here. So nothing that we do at Blackpool is new. It's come from these people. And finally, I should mention that my colleagues in the ICS, so we're in the Lancashire and South Cumbria ICS, and we work incredibly closely together. And we're very lucky that we have a group of improvement leaders in each of our provider organisations and our ambulance service who are absolutely amazing. And so some of the things that you see are things again that we've shared between ourselves, and that I've taken things from other people. So when I present this, it's not, Blackpool's great and we've done all this. This is what Blackpool has learned from others, and that's how we've developed our journey. So if you are an improvement leader starting out on your journey, you don't have to write the book. Other people have already written those chapters, and you need to take the ones that will work for your organisation. Just a little bit about our system. So Blackpool actually sits on the Fylde Coast. Probably most people have heard of Blackpool, but not so many the Fylde Coast, but it's absolutely beautiful. Fylde Coast has a population of 352,000 people, and it's made up of the Blackpool town centre and the town, which everyone knows, 18 million visitors a year. Just imagine what that does to our little hospital when they all converge on the town. But also we have rural, semi-rural communities, and a real mix. There's quite affluent areas like Lytham St Anne's and Blackpool, behind the glitz and the glamour of Blackpool Illuminations Dam, which it sounds like you might have been to. Blackpool's got pockets which are the most deprived areas out of in the UK. And we know that other localities have got deprived areas as well, but Blackpool's quite unique because if you can see, it's on the coast, so we only sort of have half a town like other seaside towns. You don't get that 360 round the town. You have a 180, and that can impact on recruitment and retention of staff. We also have an incredibly transient community, so people come to Blackpool to see the illuminations and then decide to stay, and it brings all sorts of problems with it. So we have got a very challenged population. So our trust provides a range of acute and community health services. We've got 8 sites, we've got some tertiary services, including cardiac haematology and an artificial eye service, and we employ 7,500 staff. And I just want you to keep that figure in your mind as we go through. We are an incredibly challenged trust. We have been in a requires improvement rating from the CQC for a number of years. We've had changes in our board, and we have had all sorts of incredibly difficult challenges, including criminal investigation. Our trust, however, and I've put Trish's picture here, so she's our chief executive, are absolutely committed to taking an improvement approach, and everything that we're doing in the trust, we are using the evidence-based methodology to get us back on the right track and to improve. It is not easy doing improvement in a challenged organisation like this, but as I say, we have the commitment of our executives. That's incredibly important, and one of the reasons that I came to work here. Trying to do improvement without that executive support is incredibly difficult. We have our chief nurse, who is our line manager, he's director of nursing, allied health professionals, midwifery and quality, is incredibly supported and lets us run with improvement in a way that gives us autonomy to be able to really drive it from the front line. So it's that kind of servant leadership where the frontline staff are absolutely empowered to drive improvement. In 2019, the board signed off our first quality improvement strategy. And as you can see, we're just in the process of renewing that in November this year. So in the next few weeks, we'll have our new sort of plans moving ahead. But at that particular time, and that's what I'm going to talk about now, we had 2 high-level aims around reducing preventable deaths, reducing avoidable harm, and improving the last 1,000 days of life. And that last one is more of a system level aim. And just to reiterate, a huge part of our journey is around getting the basics right. So we're not an organisation that was starting from a high place. We're starting from somewhere where perhaps improvement hadn't been supported. And we created a driver diagram, which, as you can see, highlights the areas that we believe that we needed to focus on. So we really wanted to start to think about how we develop a culture and leadership for improvement. We really wanted to think about how we create meaningful measurements. People weren't used to seeing data in the way that we're used to seeing data for improvement. We wanted to run a number of quality improvement projects using QI methodology, and we also really wanted to build the capability in our workforce. So that was kind of our starting point right at the beginning. The first thing that we had to do, so I started in post in February 2020, and we wanted to build a QI team. And some of these faces might be familiar to you, and they're people who've worked in QI. Some of them haven't worked in QI outside this organisation before. So we've got a really good mix here. Just on the team, a couple of things to note. So we have a banding system, as most teams do in organisation, but for our improvement leaders, so those that facilitate improvement, the banding is based on the level of experience and support that you need. So, for example, a band 8A would be expected to work on improvement with some autonomy. A band 7 might be working on the same kind of projects, but would have some support with that. And what we're constantly doing is trying to develop our skills in the team. So as a team, we meet every week for 2 hours. That might seem luxurious to some, but that's where we do our teaching, where we develop the team, and where we share learning. So we have a kind of an all teach, all learn. Everyone is expected to bring data to the meetings, and we really focus on that kind of all teach, all learn environment in our team. We have an analyst in our team, we have admin support, and as I mentioned before, we have Michelle, who keeps all our programmes on track, and I have no idea how she does that. Maybe somebody would like to ask that as a question. I think she may practice witchcraft behind the scenes. When we first started, we had a bit of an away day just to sort of think about how we wanted to practice improvement, and we came up with this kind of sort of aspiration that you can see at the top here, which says we want to enable our staff, patients and families to be part of an enduring culture of continuous improvement. And the two key words there are enable. So we can't do improvement for the whole trust. We have to enable people to be able to do that for themselves. And the second word is enduring. So we wanted it to stick. We didn't want to just do improvement projects, walk away and then it all fall apart, which we hear so much about, and I've experienced that myself in the past. So it was really important to us that we put those sustainability models in place. This is a very simple diagram, but lots of complexity behind it. So you can see the arrow that it says improving pathways. So we wanted to make sure that across patient pathways that we weren't harming people, that we weren't wasting processes, and that people didn't have to wait for things. And then the improvement collaboratives, as you can see, those are the arrows going down. That's where we go deep on in particular harms. So pressure ulcers is a great example, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that in a moment. And then the triangle on the left is the kind of the thing that holds everything up, really, the building capability. So we've got various improvement offers that I'll talk about today. So that's just a sort of on a page, very simple explanation of our practice and how we do things. So our framework for delivery, so we use the IHI Breakthrough Series Collaborative framework in the main. And that is, as I'm sure many of you know, and I think Michelle might be able to share with you in the chat, if not now, later, the white paper that describes the IHI there it goes. I told you she was good. The IHI framework for delivering improvement. And what that does is it gives you executive support, which, as I mentioned at the beginning, is absolutely crucial. So all our programs have executive sponsorship. The executive sponsors meet with the team once a week so that we can really keep that going. We have an expert faculty, then we have teams who come to learning sessions, but the real magic happens in the action periods in between. Everything that we do is embedded in improvement science. So Andrea mentioned that I did a master's and my research around that was around where improvement works within an organisation that has different models of delivery. And my findings were that it works not when you've necessarily got different staff groups working on it, or whether you've got different ways of delivering. It's in the improvement methodology, and absolutely everything that we do is embedded in the science of improvement. We don't deviate away from that, and we don't try and play with it and try to make it work differently. We really stick to it, and we use our team meetings to support each other in that rigor. I'm not going to go through all of these, but this is just a bit of a tour of the collaboratives that we're running and the programs that we're running. And it starts right back at the beginning of the road, where we started our QI strategy and launched it. We formed our QI hub in February 2020, and we started out on our programs that are listed here. And right in the middle of that, or right at the start of it, actually, COVID came along. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how that impacted on our work. But today I'm just going to talk you through 3 of the programs of work that we're running at the moment, or that we have run. So the first one I'm just going to talk about is our programme to eliminate pressure ulcers. And as you can see, that links to our reducing avoidable harm. And if you had eagle eyes, you would have spotted it on our driver diagram. We had a major problem with pressure ulcers in our trust. In the year before we started our collaborative, we'd recorded over 1,000 category 2s, and we were having some really serious incidents of category 3s and 4s. And we had one particular patient who'd hit all of our services, both in the community and in the hospital, and had died with a category 4 pressure ulcer. And I don't know if you've ever seen an image of a category 4 pressure ulcer, but it's horrific. And these are eye-watering numbers, and it wasn't acceptable for us to carry on. So we created, and all of you who are QI people will know about creating an aim. Now, I'm a big fan of a really ambitious aim, and this 50% reduction, at first I was like, no, we need to completely eliminate pressure ulcers. But actually, in an organisation that hasn't done any improvement before, we started really with a 50% reduction, and we're still working through our improvement now. We knew together we could achieve more, and we knew that if we just asked people to go off into their divisions and work harder and work faster, we weren't going to get anywhere. We knew that we had to do something different, and we went back to our Breakthrough Series Collaborative. However, we launched this, so our first learning session was supposed to be on, I think it was the 24th of March 2020. So everybody knows where we were on that particular day, and it wasn't a great place. We had to stand that down, but we didn't stop. We went and worked with the wards even during the pandemic, and we launched our collaborative fully in June 2020. And I think our first learning session was on something like the 19th of June. We had, in the time leading up to that first learning session, we'd gone away and worked out what the absolute best practice was for eliminating pressure ulcers and developed a change package. And we'd worked with people who really got pressure ulcers. We're not subject matter specialists in the QI team. Our job is to bring people together around the problem. So we created a change package that we would to test with the first teams that we would work with. So we brought teams together. There were 10 teams in the first phase of our collaborative, and they were a mix of both community and hospital teams, which is quite unique. Most people tend to focus on hospital pressure ulcers, but we wanted to bring people in a way that stretched them a bit and got them to think differently about how we did improvement. We had, as you can see, driver diagram, process maps, and we went through all the improvement methodology. We had external experts helping us. So we had Jackie Fletcher, who's got an OBE for her work. She works with the Stop the Pressure National team. We bring people in who we think can really drum up some excitement about the work we're doing and drive improvement. The results, I'm just going to show you some sort of high level results, really. So when I say high level, this is actually one of the teams. Now, you don't need to get too bogged down with the data. What I'm showing you this chart for is to illustrate. So this is a community team, but look at the level of annotation on this chart. So they've put the annotations on the chart. So you can see everything that they're doing. So they've used gel cushions, or they've decided to start a safety huddle, and it's that level of detail. So these are people that when we started to work with them, couldn't have told you how many pressure ulcers they had a week. They couldn't tell you when their last pressure ulcer was. But by going into the level of detail that we did with them, like I said at the beginning, we went really narrow and deep into these teams. We started to really understand the changes that would lead to an improvement. And they actually, technically, there have had a 64% reduction in pressure ulcers. This is all the community teams. So we showed the data differently before community and hospital, because obviously they work in different processes. And these teams, again, have had a really spectacular reduction in pressure ulcers of around 42%. And here is the hospital outcome data. So as you can see, they've had a few different challenges. So at the beginning, where you see that initial dip, that's where COVID sort of was in the hospital. So we had less patients, so less pressure ulcers. And it's really about having that kind of deep understanding of your data. Every single team has their own data in a Teams channel that they can go to, and we share information on those Teams channels about the work that's happening in other teams. And we brought them together in that collaborative on Teams. So we couldn't meet. It's the first time I've ever run a collaborative in that way before. Some of our staff didn't even have computers. So we had a bit of a pivot in the way that we did things, but I think the results speak for themselves. So these are the days between category 3 and 4 pressure ulcers, and as you can see, they were happening quite regularly, and that we've actually seen an increase from the baseline there in the days between. It's not been plain sailing, and you know, we have had periods since then where we've had spikes in our pressure ulcers, and that's actually been driven in our ED department, and we've gone in there and done some particular work and really sort of tried to help them through that. So we've targeted areas and oops, sorry, and I think you might need to go on mute over there. That's it. So yeah, we had some particular challenges. You can see here's a picture of the teams at the beginning. I think this might have been taken before even social distancing, so I think we had masks on, and you can see the last picture there, James. I think we just had the message that we need to start social distancing, and he was saying, I don't think I'm supposed to be stood next to you, and moving himself away. So it was quite early on in the pandemic, but we've managed to keep those improvements going and sustain them. The next project I'm going to talk to you about is around the last 1,000 days of life, and you will remember that this was a system piece of work. So actually, one of the things that we wanted to work on was reducing the number of people who experience fracture neck ischemia in care homes. We were getting around 50 patients a month coming to our ED department with fractured hips, and you know, most of those happen in the street, in the home, but we actually had quite a number happening in care homes. Again, we created a driver diagram, as we do for all our programs, and I won't dwell on that, but we just like to show that we are using that approach, and we brought together groups from care homes across our patch. Now, you know, we used a Pareto chart to see where we perhaps had some particular care homes who were having more instances of fracture neck ischemia than the other, bearing in mind, so we also looked at numbers of residents and different types of care homes, so care homes with dementia patients and such like. I just want you to focus your eye on this end, because this is where we started to really see some impact. Of course, in the middle of that, I don't need to tell you about the challenges that care homes were experiencing during that time. And in fact, one of the care homes that we were working with locked down for 2.5 months while we were working with them. They still carried the work on, but it became incredibly difficult, so we couldn't go in or indeed do sessions in the way that we perhaps would if we were in a hospital. They had loads of change ideas, and some of those were the usual things around, you know, making sure they've got the right equipment and making sure that people are wearing the right shoes and that people are going to exercise classes, and you know, lots of things that we actually know. And when we created our change package, there were loads of things that people can do. I want you to just have a look at care home M there on the left. So you can see that they've significantly reduced the number of fracture neck ischemia that they had in their care home. And when you look at their data, so these are all the residents in their care homes number of falls, and look at that red line on the left. So that's Jean. So Jean was just falling all the time, and she was falling every other day. Every 1.5 days she was having a fall. So Jean said that she was fed up with falling, but she just didn't know how to stop it. So with support from the team, we worked with Jean and designed an individual quality improvement program for her. So this is her driver diagram, and it has individual bespoke change ideas. And this is her chart. So as you can see, again, Jean has done all these things, annotated these. This is stuck up in her bedroom so that she can see it. So Jean increased the time between falling by 200% with these small interventions. So including things like having new shoes and embroidery kits so she could sit in the communal lounge and come out of her room. And the weekly falls for that care home, so they were the ones with the highest number of fractured neck ischemia within the local area, managed to reduce by 70%. And the weekly attendances, so it didn't stop there, it stopped people coming to the hospital. So obviously what we learned about Jean, we were then able to take to other care homes. So this is the next care home, and in red you can see Brian. Brian again did exactly the same as Jean. You can see his data there. The number of days between falls has increased. And then the care home falls. So we're starting to build a case here and working, you know, the unexpected advantage of this work was that we were able to bring care homes to work together in a way that they had never worked together before. These are businesses and in some ways are in competition, but you know, this was by no means the perfect project, but we were able to collaborate with a variety of organisations in our local health economy, including community teams, GPs and council leaders, and this work continues. Finally, I think I might be able to get through this by the time the clock hits 10:40. I just want to tell you about our education programme. So those are two of the large scale change programmes. And as you could see on our roadmap when we showed you, we're doing lots of large scale change programmes, but we're also using the same methodology to build the foundations for improvement. So it's probably just worth saying, so every single collaborative that we run, we are educating people in that improvement science. So all the people who've been through the collaboratives have now got a really good understanding of how to run improvement themselves. We also want to improve our safety culture across the organisation, and this driver diagram here, which has primary drivers around improving insight, involvement, improvement and inspiration, come from the National Patient Safety Strategy. But I'm just going to focus here on improvement, and you can see there in red mentioned the Clinical Quality Academy. So we knew that if we wanted to really have a dosing structure in our organisation that educated people in improvement, and that everybody wasn't just looking to the quality improvement team to do improvement, we needed to do something completely different. And it was here that we decided to launch what we call our Clinical Quality Academy. So what is important about the Clinical Quality Academy is it's a team-based education programme led by consultants. So this is our initial flyer that went out to the teams. It is designed to encourage consultants to lead improvement, but with a real focus on patient safety. And you will also see that we encourage members of our BAME community to apply and have supported them in their improvement journey. We use the Breakthrough Series collaborative model to deliver this, but what we have done is we have collaborated with who we think are the most influential leaders in improvement. So you might see some familiar faces there. So we've got Maureen Bozzinano, who is the former chief executive of the IHI, came and spoke to our teams on at their first learning session. We've had Charles Vincent come and talk about the measuring and monitoring of safety framework. We've had James Mountford, the Director of Improvement, your very own from the Health Foundation, Penny Pereira, Zoe Edricks, who's a specialist coach who works with teams, and the amazing Professor Mohammed, who's taught our teams on systems thinking and variation improvement, and Brandon Bennett, who's a senior fellow, is our lead faculty. We could have taught this ourselves, but we really wanted to excite people and give them the best education possibly in improvement. The course isn't like any course that people have been on before, so it's really about connection, vulnerability, bringing yourself into the room and really connecting with patients and families before we even, I think it's on learning session 3 or 4 that we really start to talk about improvement in terms of things like PDSAs. These consultants will be our leaders. We've got 10 now who are educated to what I believe is the highest level and have practiced improvement. We're just about to start with our next cohort. We went out for 10, but we've snuck an 11th person in. I'm just going to try and will the sound work, Michelle? Yes. So this is just a sweet video really that shows the teams in action at one of the learning sessions. So what we've done is really encourage that creative thinking. In this particular session, which is around thinking differently, they're working on making films that they can share to share the work that they're doing. You can just see the energy in the room and consultants and their teams working together. Each team has created a poster at the end of the training program. The program is 12 months long, and you can see there that every poster that we have has got data on it. It's got patient stories and you know, a real connection with the human side of change, and it isn't just around the results, it's around the learning that these teams have experienced. And they're all so proud. We had to stand down our celebration event because of trust pressures, but we're actually having it again on we're actually able to run it this week on Friday, and we're very excited for it. You'll see us on Twitter celebrating the success, and our chief executive and our medical director will be there to celebrate with the teams. This is our all our improvement training, including people coming onto our improvement collaboratives, are recorded on ESR so that we can see how many staff have been through the programme. So remember at the beginning I said we had 7,500 staff, and in the time since we started our improvement programme in 2020, we've got 1,011, I think, is it there? I can't see that because it's a bit small on my screen. Staff have been through the training programme in one way or another, which I think is incredible. I can't really end this presentation without mentioning our Q Exchange work. So we were fortunate enough to get funding from the Health Foundation to develop our Blackpool Safety Barometer. You can see it's on version 3, but there will be many, many versions before this becomes live. But you can see here how we're pulling together safety measures with operational things that might impact on the team, and improvement initiatives, and things like learning from excellence, so that you can get a real sense of where a team are, be it a ward or a department. That's something that's coming soon, so exciting stuff. So I was asked to share my top tips, and I'm nearly finished, Andrea, you'll be pleased to know. So I think these are my top tips, and I've probably got millions, but these are the very top ones. So I think executive sponsorship is key. I've said it right all the way through this. It's really important that the executives are completely on board and supporting the work. They can help unblock those big boulders of things that the teams can't do themselves, and they need to understand what it's like to be working in the system. You know, if you can get execs down to the wards to have your meetings, that's ideal. Rigorous use of improvement science. You've heard me talk about that all the way through. The minute you start to deviate from the methodologies where we run into problems, we do it ourselves. We are by no means perfect. It happens all the time, but that we pull each other back, and we pull each other back. Achieve improvement no matter how small, and then celebrate it and bank it. So I say bank your improvement to my team all the time. It's a bit like a qualification. Once you've got it, no one can take it away from you. Remember that, learn from it, and keep that at the forefront. So when you're talking, talk about those stories, talk about those experiences, but we absolutely celebrate to the nth degree any improvements that we have. Pull in the favours. You've seen names on my slides there of all sorts of people. I've been pulling in favours left, right and centre, and sometimes I sometimes push it a bit too far, I think, but we absolutely, you know, we use the Health Foundation, we use Aqua, we use our partners in the ICS, we pull in favours wherever we can. Be relentless. The pace that we work at is phenomenal. Poor Michelle managing all these projects sometimes I think thinks we need to slow down again, and sometimes the team do sort of say, you know, are we going too fast? But we do have to keep going. This has got to, you know, we're only as good as our last improvement, so we've really got to keep that going, but keeping it fun. The teams really enjoy it. They tell us they enjoy it, and particularly through COVID, it's been really nice to see people telling us that it's been something that kept them going when things were tough. What would we do differently? Sometimes we've lost our focus a bit, and you know, going back to the execs and saying, is this the priority, has been something that I think we should have done more often at times where we've perhaps lost our focus, and we're certainly more focused on the trust top priorities now. Building sustainability from the start. We've sometimes forgotten that in our excitement to get going in improvement, and then we realise that actually as we move away there's nobody able to then collect the data, or there's no accountability framework built in. So we are much better at that now. Getting the data and measures right at the start, and again that's you know, part of the sustainability really, and we've built that in now to our improvement programs, and I think that's really important to do. And we've had a few hiccups along the way with that, and probably don't cancel things. So we've cancelled a few things over the last couple of years because of pressures, and it's, you know, it disappoints the teams. It sometimes those people don't go back onto the ward, they go home because they had a study day, and you lose people. And as much as we can, just keep going. Our biggest achievements, and I'm just about, this is, I think this is my last slide, it is, biggest achievements. So I think just getting the trust up and running, establishing an amazing QI team in the midst of everything that we face, but continuing to engage and deliver improvement with the teams. We're just so proud of that. And those attendances at the QI training that have people, you know, people volunteer, and we've had you know, just a brilliant response to QI. I think people are excited by it. We've had posters and presentations at forums, and we really like to celebrate and show off the work that we've done, and that's why we're here today, because we love to share what we're doing and learn from others. And then I think we're extremely proud that we've got finally that we've been shortlisted for 4 categories at both the HSJ Award and the Patient Safety Awards, which are coming up in the next couple of months. We may not win, but that's okay. We're just extremely proud to be there and to be able to take members of those teams to a celebration event. So I think, my very last word, we're also very proud of the many patients that have been kept safe, have spent less time in hospital, and we know that lives have been saved, and that obviously trumps everything. I can't believe I nearly forgot that last little bit there, but that is their biggest achievement. That's what we're here to do. So that's it. I think I went a couple of minutes over, sorry.
That's amazing, and it's a really exciting and fascinating story, and you can see the claps at the bottom of the screen.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm sure we've all got loads of questions, many of which won't be addressed now, but thank you for that. It's amazing. I'm going to hand over to Michelle now to host a brief Q&A, but I believe she's allowing me to ask the first question. But I'll hand over to you, Michelle, because you're now in charge.
Thanks, Andrea. Yeah, and thank you for everybody that's put the questions in the chat. I have answered those that I can, and obviously you can email, our email address there is on the screen, and anybody can contact myself outside of this, or anybody watching the recording. We can certainly share more in details. I think, yeah, Andrea, you had a question, I think, for us, didn't you, to start us off?
I did indeed. I had lots of questions, but I would just focus on one, which is, of all the amazing, incredible stuff that you're working on at the moment, what can anybody on this call help you with?
So in my office, I have a board which has all the programs that we're working on, and I always write in red some of the challenges that I've got. And one of my biggest challenges at the moment is Paria, who's my deputy, is leaving our team, and she is an academic, so she has a PhD, and she's really helping us with our evaluations. And we're writing up, so we've just written up our pressure ulcer work and submitted that to, I think it's to BMJ Open, and we've got other papers in the pipeline, but without her expertise, I think that's something we'd struggle with. And I'm interested to know what others do or have done to get academic rigour around the work that they're doing, to be able to share that widely, because we want to share everything we've done. We want to share it with that evidence base and do that properly. And I think I'm really interested to know if anybody's got any great ideas about how to do that.
That's certainly one we can pick up with you. Definitely, because that's something in our trust we certainly look at, and partnerships with universities are a really exciting opportunity as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested, if anybody wants to put in the chat, if anybody's got any ideas and thoughts, we will read all the chat and answer any questions as well that we don't pick up during this conversation.
Thank you, Andrea. There was a good question when you were talking about the last 1,000-day programme, Catherine, from Nadine, I think from Manchester, who's asked, how did we manage to onboard but also keep that engagement with the care homes, draw in not only pressures from the acute trust and the care homes and a pandemic?
Good question. So the first thing that we did was we created a partnership between the directors of both the hospital and adult social care. So we had that really senior input into the work that we did, and then we met with each of the care homes with the directors. So it wasn't me going out and knocking on the doors, it was the chiefs of the hospital and the chiefs of adults social care, and that conversation was one of support. So we want to help you and we want to work together and we want to be innovative and we want to do this for the first time. This is going to be groundbreaking and different. We also had somebody in our team who's incredible actually, and has just got the right way about her to work with those care homes. So she followed that up and nurtured those relationships, and she's in her car daily going round to those teams and working with them. I mean, they've knitted things for us now, they're so fond of us. On saying that, this has not been easy and we have lost a number of care homes. So, we started off with 10, we lost 4 during the first waves of the pandemic. We've got 4 who we're particularly engaged with, but we've got enough learning there that we can start to go to scale with that. But it is a massive challenge. All I can say is just keep bringing those leaders back. So we've got a meeting in another week where the senior people are coming together. Again, we've got public health there, we've got GPs, we've got the people who can really influence and help to make a difference and bring these people along with us. And you saw in the photos, we've got teams of people now who'll promote that work, and this isn't a blame game or a fight. We've got people who'll stand up and say that from the care homes, and actually at the end of the day, keeping it very patient focused has been key. When I say patient focused, can I just revise that? Resident focused, because they're not patients. Hopefully not patients.
Thanks, Catherine. There's just one more I've picked up from the chat box, and then we'll just see if anybody had any that they wanted to ask live. So it was from Joanna, who was commenting about the driver diagrams for individuals. I think that was perhaps Jean from the last 1,000 days programme. And she's just said, could you explain a bit more, how do you go from identifying those individual level improvements to then design something that you then kind of go to scale at?
Yeah, sure. So what we found was the things that Jean was saying, other people were saying. So one of the things that Jean said when we were creating her driver diagram was that one of the reasons that she doesn't go to exercise classes, and we know that getting people out of their rooms and getting into exercise classes reduces falls. We've seen that around the work that's been done in Scotland, for example. So we knew that might be something that would help Jean. Jean wanted to go to the exercise classes, but she found them so boring and the music's the same every time, and she just couldn't stand sitting there with all those people listening to that same music every time. That small thing that she tells us is so easy to fix and impacted on everyone in the care home. So everyone starts saying, oh, these music classes, these dance classes, these exercise classes are so much more fun now. We all want to come. We share that data and we see a direct correlation in people attending the classes and reductions in falls. Then we share that with care home B. So that's care home A. Care home B then think, well, actually, yeah, we have that same lady coming in every week and she just puts the same music on and does the same thing. Maybe we need to shake it up a bit. And so you start to get the other care homes learning from each other. And when we've got data to back that up and we can see numbers increasing of residents attending the actual sessions, feedback saying that it's more enjoyable, and then reductions in falls, you start to create on a small scale at this stage a bit of an evidence base around that, and then perhaps we can scale it up to the next 4 care homes and the next 4, and then it may not work for everybody, but it's that kind of thing that we do, going from those very individual instances. Not everything that Jean did will work for everyone, but what the real interesting thing was that the staff in the care home weren't focusing on reducing Jean's falls. Yet she was a prolific faller. They were dealing with her, but they weren't thinking in an improvement mindset about how they could reduce her falls. So they were picking her up and trying to stop her from falling by doing things, but they weren't doing it using improvement methods. And that was the difference. So they could actually deeply understand what was impacting.
Thanks, Catherine. I think we might have time just for one more question. And Melanie, I think from Samwell and West Birmingham's got a hand up.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Catherine. That's really good to hear the excitement that you're generating in your organisation for improvement, and good to hear you being very purist about it. So I think that's really important. I'm interested, we're just starting out on our CQI journey and how we make the shift from doing improvement to continuous quality improvement, and the management systems that need to be in place to make sure that we are joining the dots from the shop floor all the way up to the board. So I wondered if you could add any advice or tips on that.
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned about the executive sponsorship, so I would recommend making sure that every programme has an executive sponsor. We report in through our committee structure. So I think I'm the only non-exec director who presents at board. And I presented at pretty much every public board since we started our QI journey. That keeps me on my toes, let me tell you, because you want to go with improvement stories every time. So it keeps that pace of improvement going and that rigor around our improvement. But it also keeps their eye on the improvement journey and make sure that we're focusing on the right things. So last week, we had an improvement event around processes on the ward, which is part of our flow programme, and both a non-exec director and an exec director, in fact the deputy chief executive, were at that session. I didn't ask them to go. I almost didn't want them to go because I didn't want them interfering, but they came, and the passion that comes from them in terms of improvement. So that having that sort of system of improvement, and obviously paying attention to working on the right things. So sepsis is something in our organisation. You know, from a governance perspective, we've got work that we need to do there. There's loads of opportunity for improvement. So that becomes a priority, and we work on it. We've got, you know, it links to our incident reporting, our serious incidents, and so that's the kind of route to improvement. Things that are high priority for the organisation become our business, if that makes sense. I should just add to that, sorry. So really important is not just having executive sponsors who pay lip service to being executive sponsors. We put a weekly meeting in with them. It's half an hour and they don't always turn up, but it's in there every week. And if they do turn up, we're ready for them. So most weeks they turn up, but if they don't, it's fine. You know, we understand life's busy, but it's there and they see it in their diary, and it reminds them that they're the exec sponsor.
Thanks, Catherine. There's been some really good comments in the chat throughout, so we'll definitely pick those up and feedback and answer any more questions that anybody's got. I don't think anybody else had a question they wanted to ask. No one else has got their hand up. As I said, we can share our contact details. I'll ask Andrea to send that out to everybody that's attended and with the recording. So I'll hand back to Andrea.
Lovely. So thank you, Catherine and Michelle, tremendously on behalf of everybody watching, attending, and watching it later. We really appreciate your time and the time of everyone who's joined us today. And we hope that those listening have been inspired by your story. And yeah, the learning is phenomenal. So just thank you for sharing. It has been a pleasure to have you here, and we can't wait to hear about the next phase of your journey, because it's going to be exciting, and we hope you get the help you need. And if there is anything that any of the community can help with, please let us know.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. And I realise now I could have talked for 2 hours, so maybe next year.
We look forward to phase 2 of
Don't know if anybody could bear it. Michelle's got her hand up, I think.
I was just going to say thank you to Andrea and your
Yes.
team for putting these spotlight sessions on. I think they're a great idea. I think me and Catherine have been honoured that we've been able to come and do the first one. I've shared just our email address in the chat for anybody that wants to pick it up afterwards. We do have some job opportunities available at the moment at Blackpool. If anybody has been inspired this morning and would like to relocate to the sunny Fylde Coast, I'll share those as well.
Wonderful. And yeah, it sounds like a great team to join, with lots of exciting opportunities there to make a real difference to patients. So I hope you get a
Absolutely.
flurry of activity and applications to your jobs. And just likewise with Evidence for QI, we'd welcome any engagement, involvement. Do get in touch if you'd like to find out more. It's a 12-month programme of events, loads of really cool stuff happening. The idea behind E for QI is that we're trying to centralise and trying to just provide access to knowledge-based, evidence-based, QI related research, evidence, best practice that you might not necessarily be able to do at a trust level, and just open up that dialogue at a national level if we can, and help you. So if you've got any ideas, want to get more involved, please do get in touch and we'll follow up. So this concludes the webinar. Thank you all so much for attending, and we will send out the recording after the event, and we hope to see you at the next Spotlight session, if not before. So thank you so much.